Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Alexx Calise, and welcome to my brand new podcast where we discuss everything music, entertainment, and beyond. On the show today, we have a very, very special guest. This is Mr. Richard Wayland.
Hello.
Yay!
Yay. Hi.
I think there was actually... Oh, I can't do
sound effects. They're
not working. I don't have them queued up. Darn it. Okay.
What kind of dog and pony show is this? Is this even plugged into anything?
Yeah, right? This is the DLZ creator, and I was trying to demonstrate all the cool things it can do. But I digress. Richard, I'm so glad to see you because I think it's been at least 10 years or so since we've actually been in the same room, and this feels so great, just to see you again. But just to give everybody some background, Richard and I know each other, it turns out, for about 17 years. Yeah. Both Richard and his former roommate, was it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Of his former roommate, Matt Hayes, who's a fantastic guitar player. They were the very first people, I think, that I met out in LA.
Yeah.
So
I remember that night. No, I actually remember that night. So Matt was not my roommate, but I had a roommate named Patrick that we used
That's
to
what it was. Okay, yes,
visit you a lot too.
Yes.
No, so I remember we saw this this girl, but who, by the way, you look exactly the same now.
Thank
you have not changed in the last 17 years. And I'd say the only thing that was different is that you had super duper long hair,
mm-hmm.
right? I feel like it went below your waist, and you were, I think this was sort of like something of a goth phase. Approximately, because I remember
I still am in the goth phase.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit.
I definitely remember the black punk rock T-shirts with the huge baggy, cargo pants and
mm-hmm.
But I remember you getting up on stage and you were barefoot and playing an acoustic guitar and you were just belting it out. It was you were just brand new in town. You talked about that a little bit, and you had nothing but the guitar on your back, and you absolutely just blew us away.
Oh, thank you.
And obviously, it just made such a huge impression that you were like, oh my gosh, we got to meet this girl. We got to talk to this girl. And then you also turned out to be unbelievably cool and funny.
Thank you.
Just kind of cute and quirky, and it was just really a pleasure to kind of keep in touch with you over the years, and then watch how your life and career and everything just continued to evolve and change over the past again, it's hard to say 17 years.
Oh God, I know it hurts a little bit in here.
I don't like saying over the last couple decades I've seen how much you've developed.
Yes, as we laugh with the smile lines and the crow's feet. No, I'm kidding. No, that's what Botox is for. No, but it's very much, whenever I even say your name, I just can't help but smile. There are certain people that, that's what they inspire when I think about them. And that's how I feel about you. And I have so much respect and admiration for you because firstly, it's really funny. Were you born did you come out of the womb with a tux on or a suit? Because for the first, I don't know how many years that I knew you were always in a suit.
Sure.
You always sharp dress guy. But you know what? No matter what you set your mind to, you always made it work, and you made it work better than most people that had been at it for all of their lives.
Thank you. So I'd say probably a lot of that was when I was younger. I was always, in rooms of trying to manage or trying to sell something or whatever to people much older than me, And so what I did is I always dressed the part. I always dressed older because, we were just kids at the time. And, by and large, 40-something men don't like being told what to do by a 23-year-old kid,
right.
So I always dress up. I remember I went to a hairdresser one time and I was like, hey, I've got this, big meeting coming up. Can you cut my hair in a way that makes it very ambiguous what age I am?
That's a tall order.
I want to be cool, but I also need to look like I'm in my 30s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's just sort of just faking it till I made it. And then once I made it, I just never dress in suits anymore.
Yeah, now it feels like you went in reverse, like you got more casual as the years went on.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely. Yeah. Especially ever since becoming a dad, like I wear sneakers all day, every day now,
I think there comes a time in your 30s where the only thing that you own are sneakers as I wear them now.
Yeah. I've got nobody to impress with fancy, uncomfortable shoes. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. Let's get to the heart of the matter here.
Okay,
yes. What do you do?
Okay. All right. So I am a real estate broker. My office is in Orange County. I started the Imagination Brokerage with the intent of bringing a kind of more hardcore investor mindset into everyday real estate decisions. I spent a long time working with different types of big companies and different types of big money investors and stuff like that. And my dream always from the very beginning was trying to bring this knowledge to my peer group, trying to help, fellow millennials to make their first investments, buy their first houses, just this whole world of things that frankly continues to get harder and harder to do, and as the world continues to change and as I guess, I don't know, like the reality of life kind of sets in for a lot of our peers, all the things that I thought that I would be learning or providing or doing, for people when I started out, like all the traditional American stuff, like, oh, well, when my kids settle down when my friends settle down and have kids and they want to buy their first house, I'm going to, help teach them how to do that. And, now we're kind of starting to push 40 and the majority of our generation still can't afford houses, at least not here in Southern California. And so, I've had to constantly kind of relearn and redefine and also take my own risks and go out and make kind of weird, crazy decisions in my own kind of financial life to try to sort of be a pioneer and to try to kind of learn and lead the way to help my friends to kind of get to whatever that next step is in real estate ownership.
Well, I wanted to talk specifically about real estate ownership and musicians.
Yes.
Because a lot of musicians like myself, we don't have steady income.
Right.
So is it possible for someone like, say, myself or a creative or a gig worker to own a house?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I want to take a special mention that you are probably one of the best business people I've ever met in my entire life. I know you always react like that when I say this, but I think one of the things that early on, what kind of drew us together, is the fact that you are just such a good business person. You're such a good entrepreneur. You bring people to you that want to work with you, and you come up with not just regular creative ideas to do things. Like you're just always on like the forefront of doing something cool, something interesting. And you always jump on new opportunities when they present themselves. And I say that also as a compliment to all musicians. So I went to business school, like a fancy university. And I would say that the average musician in Los Angeles is a better business person than at least like 3/4 of the people I went to college with. It's in order to make it here and to make it in such an unbelievably competitive environment, you have to be so good at branding yourself. You have to be so good at networking. You have to be so good at, like bootstrapping, like setting up your own website, setting up your own social media, mastering all the technology behind it. One of the reasons why we're sitting here down here and talking right now is just because, there's like so many technical details that go into it. And then the technical details of the business side of it too, all the financial management of everything. And so, it's no wonder that like the average musician here is, I think, more than a lot of other art forms here. Just they're so entrepreneurial and so smart. And, or at least, certainly if you're going to last 10 years, 20 years living here, because it's a real meat grinder and only the strong are going to survive. Okay. So, right off the bat, I just want to say, if you're a millennial and you're a musician, you live in a major city, you've already accomplished a lot more than most business people, and probably a lot more than you give yourself credit for. And then, and it's not your fault that everyone in your life has always basically told you that like home ownership is just not in the cards for you. You know what I mean?
Well, we're here to debunk that rumor.
Right.
You're going to tell us how to do it.
Yes, exactly.
You have all of the answers, Richard Wayland. No pressure.
I'm going to solve one of the big, like, systemic issues.
If I don't have a house by the time we finish this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. No, and you know, like, yeah, I wish I could wave a magic wand and make it suddenly easier for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do is at least try to enlighten some people into maybe some alternative strategies and perspectives they may not have considered. And also kind of like try to demystify it somehow, because like I think a lot of people actually overestimate how hard it is to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it's just some sort of like magic, you know, that you kind of like walk into the bank and then someone waves a wand and then you suddenly have hundreds of thousands of dollars that you didn't have before. And you know, and like you ask the average person, I guess in like an urban area, like in Southern California, like, oh, you know, how much money do you think you need to save in order to buy a house?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, oh, well, you know, I know it's about 20%. So given the price of houses here, like I need to save $200,000. And that's going to take 50 years to
Right.
be able to save that amount of money, you know? And so, you know, so understandably people feel sort of disheartened about it. And then they kind of just shut off their learning of
Mm-hmm.
it from there. You know, they don't really bother to kind of scratch any deeper than that to learn, well, wait a second, hang on a second. There actually are a lot of financing options that don't require very much down payment. Like you can put as little as 1% down, you know, as long as you have the income to be able to, you know, pay for your mortgage. Or kind of on the flip side, it's like, you know, if you're finding that, you know, oh man, like you just don't make enough money to be able to make mortgage payments, which right now with how high interest rates are, totally understandable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there are other types of real estate you could buy or other places where you can buy it and still sort of receive some of the benefits of owning real estate without, you know, necessarily having like this unbelievably high expensive overhead.
Well, you were even telling me about Ohio, right?
Yes.
Ohio being a good place to invest.
Yes. Yeah. I actually just like last week, I actually bought 2 houses in Ohio.
Get out of here. Amazing.
One of them cost $35,000 and the other one cost $50,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, so like you could get a conventional loan with, you know, putting just $5,000-$10,000 down.
Get out of here.
And,
oh my gosh.
And get a house. And then, you know, and then that can become an investment property for you in a number of different ways. You know, you can use that as a, so right now what we're doing them for is we're doing them as rentals, for like, low income, like affordable housing.
I've been hearing a lot about this trend actually.
Yeah.
People buying multiple houses and renting them out as Airbnbs or VRBO. What is it? What
Verbo. Yeah, VRBO. Yeah, you know, short-term rentals, you know, is definitely something that has been trendy for quite some time, but is also oversaturated in a lot of different markets. And we've been hearing in a lot of markets, like there's sort of a bubble that's popping for Airbnb. And so, you know, also a lot of regions don't like Airbnb, like politically, because it's, you know, driving up the cost of real estate. And, you know, with so many people complaining about, you know, obviously the cost of real estate going up, they understandably are, you know, angry at all the short-term rental people. Right. And so, so we are seeing a lot of laws that are passing that are, you know, kind of putting an end to Airbnb as we know it in a lot of different parts of the country. Southern California, a lot of different areas in Southern California as well. So, you know, what I am suggesting, or what at least what I'm recommending right now, is just trying to find certain niches of rentals that are kind of underrepresented. And so in Cleveland right now, there's actually a wait list for affordable housing for, you know, small families. And I know it's a very, very specific niche, right?
Right.
But that's kind of what you need to do right now. Like you know, if it was easy, if there was like, oh well, just buy anything to rent out for any amount of money, I don't know, anywhere in the middle of the country, then everyone would be doing it. Actually, everyone did do it, and now everything's too expensive, right?
Exactly.
So you have to be like much more tactical and much more specific now. But I don't want to necessarily bore the this is not a real estate podcast, so I'm not going to sit here and get into all the super technical details about that. The point that I really want to reinforce is that there are a million ways to get into real estate ownership. There are different ways to that, basically where people crowdfund to buy small shares of real estate in various types of commercial projects. There are, publicly traded real estate investment trusts where, you can download the Robinhood app and, put $100 into a real estate investment trust. Short term, we call them REITs. You invest in a REIT and pick up anywhere, depending on the risk rating, from like 2% to 6% back on your money, every year like clockwork. Right. It's not necessarily the most glamorous way to invest, but there's no reason to feel like you need to limit yourself is all I'm saying. Whether you've got $20 or $200,000 or $2 million, like there are ways to be smart with it. There are ways to be creative and flexible with it. And there are ways to at least get your foot in the door so you can start getting yourself learning and talking to the right people and networking with the right people. And yeah, just start learning, because sooner or later you're going to come upon that idea of something that's going to work for you. And then, you'll be in a position mentally and emotionally and financially where you can jump on it.
What about if you wanted to buy a property in Los Angeles and you're a creative that is basically self-employed?
Yeah.
They have self-employment income. Do you think that it's possible to get property out here, or is it just completely unattainable? Do you have to go to like Orange County, or do you have to go outside of the state entirely?
Sure. Let me put it this way. In our peer group, and I know hundreds of musicians personally, and maybe like a few thousand people that I kind of like keep in touch with on a regular basis, right? I'm just talking like, like social media, like Facebook or whatever. So out of, let's say approximately like 3,000 some odd people that I kind of keep in touch with, I probably only know 3 or 4 musician friends our age who own houses, right? I mean, like, and then, and then there's like older people that we know that own houses, but they were buying in like a very different economy, right?
Right.
But like, just like real talk, right? If you want to own a nice house in Los Angeles for yourself to live in, that's close to work for you, whether that's, like probably Hollywood or Studio City, right? There's really only 1 or 2 kind of like career tracks that like can really do that for you that I've seen, in this industry. And those would be, and you probably have some friends that are like this too. Those are going to be like studio musicians that play on a lot of albums, you know what I mean? Or that tour a lot, or are the people that like when tours come in, they're sort of like the borrowed talent for that type of gig. We've got people who play in a like for film, and that take other kind of role, like music composition or production roles for film. And so yeah, I'd say like let's see, 2 of my friends that own houses. Oh, and then there's like another category too where like they play for theater. So like I've got a couple of friends that like played for Broadway for a while.
Okay.
And and then they were able to kind of make this transition to being like Broadway / I don't know, live theater and studio, musician, stuff like that. What I'm going to get at here though is that it's not that these people make a ton of money. I actually know other musicians who make more money than they do touring or selling their own albums or whatever. But they you kind of have to take a step back and look at it from the bank's perspective. From a bank's perspective, who is paying you and kind of how consistently and how much they're paying for you is super duper important, right? So if you have a W-2 job or like a nice salary with like a big movie studio or music label or whatever, so like, you're walking up to the bank and you're showing them your pay stub from Warner Brothers, Universal, Capital, whatever, right? That means a lot more than if you were to make twice as much money as an independent musician,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you even experience that when you're trying to rent a place out here.
Yeah.
It's just that was going to be another question that I had. Have you had any clients where they've complained to you about almost being discriminated against because of the work that they do in terms of with banks trying to obtain loans?
I guess I no longer think of it as
Or
discrimination.
it's not discrimination.
Myself, no.
I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but where they would be hesitant, where they were turned away because of where their income comes from.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something I run into a lot too as a real estate agent, because almost all real estate agents are independent contractors, commission only. Their income fluctuates tremendously, and banks know that, and they don't like it. Long story short, they know that and they don't like it. So, you just kind of like look at the way a bank would look at you. And then, ask yourself some questions about like, so first of all, if home ownership is something that's like very important to you, how much is worth, risking or sacrificing to kind of get to that point where you can do it. Right. Is there a nice cushy corporate job, that, might be able to make some use of some of your talents that you do well enough to be able to do that, or is there a different way to structure what you're already doing in a way that looks better to banks? So that's kind of like we'll go down that route, because I don't necessarily want to just tell all your musician friends, followers, fans that they should just sell out and give up on their dreams, right? Like that's not.
Or I mean, like you can do both. I really do believe that. I mean, I have a corporate job right now. Thankfully, it happens to be in the industry that I love. But what's nice about it is it is steady. And I have a 401k now, which is fantastic, and the health insurance and all of that other stuff. And I'm still able to pursue my music and do this podcast and do a bunch of other stuff that I love. It's just, if anything, it has helped me to prioritize the things in my life that I need to prioritize.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like once again, I'll say, you are such an excellent example to musicians.
Oh, thank
you. Struggling artists of all different kinds, right? Because, when we first met, you had probably some of the worst jobs I've ever seen anyone have.
Yes.
Like literally, like, I mean, because I remember, so I'll say them so you don't have to like say them.
Oh my God.
You can edit this out if you want to,
That's okay.
right?
No, it's staying in.
Like, Shot Girl at an Armenian nightclub was one of my favorites.
Oh God, that was terrifying. Yeah.
Handing out flyers on the Venice Boardwalk for, it's like Netflix, but for porn.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God. Oh my God, I can't believe you remember that.
Of course I remember. Those are, oh my gosh, like just some of your jobs, they were like literally the worst jobs I've ever even heard of, But you know what? Like you never like complained. Like you just went out there, you did it. And like, I can even like, I can just imagine like your head, just your gears turning where it's like, listen, like every single dollar that comes in, I'm going to invest it in this thing. I'm going to do that. That's going to give me the freedom and the time to be able to focus on my art. And then, and then you just ended up being so entrepreneurial in a lot of really interesting ways. Like when you started that kids party company and it just became this like huge, crazy thing. And, just like you always jump at all these opportunities that you see. And, I've always just really, really admired you for it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's like likewise, that you were the first person that I thought of when I decided to start this podcast, and I had to call you and tell you about it and tell you about the step and repeat. And I'm like, beg, borrow, and steal the idea if you want. You're totally cool to use it.
Yeah.
Because, I went to you for some even guidance about it. I'm like, how do I do this?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, I'll say that like, again, every yeah, sorry, no, I keep hitting this microphone. I keep, yeah, no, you're surprisingly less Italian than me right now.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, hey,
no, because I would encourage like all the musicians that are listening. You're probably really good at marketing, like a lot better at social media and marketing than most of your peers, right? Like you're probably really good with the technology of like filming and recording audio and all that stuff. And guess what? Those are extremely relevant and marketable skills right now. So like whether you end up, I don't know, just like doubling down on just like purely just like the creative side of music, or if you want to try to sell your talent to somebody else, or kind of take a little subset of your skills, like, your ability to sound engineer or film media, or, be a social media manager or something like that. There are definitely ways to kind of leverage those skills into a kind of a new sort of lucrative side hustle. But again, I know that like, I'm already preaching to the choir because I know every single musician is so skilled at this already, like such a good entrepreneur at figuring this out. Okay. All right. So how do we sort of package this together in a way that banks like? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, you need to have two people in your life. One is a experienced real estate broker like myself who, knows lots of people with that are self-employed or independent contractors and stuff like that, and has experience working with those types of people, right? And just just chat with that person, chat with me about kind of your overall sort of goals, your overall kind of financial picture, and try to get the big sort of high altitude perspective of approximately which direction you should be kind of like aiming your planning and your goals, right? And then for sort of like the down on the ground, more sort of tactical advice, you're going to want to talk to a very experienced loan broker who, again, has experience working with people that are, self-employed or, commission-based or, whatever. I say that because, a lot of people think that all lenders are the same, right? Like, and then when they think lender, they think I'm going to walk into my Chase or Bank of America or whatever and just ask the first person there, hey, who do I talk to about a home loan, right? Mm-hmm. And then that person is going to do the best they can to help you, but they're ultimately most likely going to say, I don't know how to help you, which isn't necessarily saying that they can't, that no one can help you. It's just they don't know how. Like Chase doesn't have a package for you. They're not designed to be able to help you, right? But if you talk to a loan broker, somebody who's like an independent third party who shops people around to lots of banks for a living, what you're quickly going to find is that there's actually a ton of establishments out there that are designed to help you, okay? Especially right now. So one of the things that that most people don't really have a good perspective of is the fact that when interest rates are super duper high, the banks are really hurting. There's not as many people coming in to get loans, so they're really, really hurting. It's kind of like, gas prices go up. It's not the individual gas station that's making more money. They're making less money. Someone else further up the food chain is making more money, right? So, likewise, these banks are really struggling right now. And so they have more programs than ever to try to qualify a wider variety of people for loans. And so, I'd actually say this is probably, at least in my career, so I've been in this for about 10 years and, worked in real estate development for, 5-10 years before that. Like this is the best time I have ever seen for someone who is self-employed or an artist or something like that to go out and get a loan, because banks are just so desperate for anyone to come into the door. They're like, oh, well, hey, you know what? It's okay. You don't have a W-2. You don't have a, show us, 2 years of 2 years of tax returns. Oh, you don't have 2 years of tax returns? Okay. Just show us 1 year of tax returns. Oh, well, I mean, maybe just at least show us, 12 months of financial statements? Well, okay, I mean 6 months of, like they just keep setting the bar lower and lower and lower.
It's like, okay, do you have cash in your wallet right now? Do you have a credit card? Great.
Awesome. There's okay, all right, great. We'll see what we can do. Like they're bending over backwards to try to make things work for you. Again, it still may be difficult. It still may not be possible today for you. But you got to start that conversation sooner rather than later so that you can start to make some of those financial decisions in your life, some of those big decisions, like you might want to run that by your loan broker first before you make like a big change, right? Like let's say that you were sitting in a situation where, some new guitar magazine wants to hire you, right? But they are, even though they're willing to pay you more, it's just going to be a 1099, and there's going to be, I don't know, some sort of like bonus or commission thing. It's like you're going to get equity in this because it's a startup. You can get equity instead of higher pay or something, right? There's just so many different. I'm sure you get pitched on this every once in a while, right? Like someone will be like, oh, because like Alexx is young and cool and influential and all that. Like, I bet that she would jump at the opportunity to have $200,000 of imaginary equity money, right? Like in order to kind of join the startup, right? And then, you got to like seriously stop and kind of think about that and consider all your options and all. And, I suggest that, if you are keeping in touch with your loan broker friend, your real estate broker friend, and are able to kind of really run some of those numbers, you actually have a much more tactical and strategic understanding of, wait, does this actually improve your odds of being able to get a loan or not, right? Like, does this really contribute to your long-term financial goals or not? So that's kind of a very extreme example, but there are lots of little choices that people sometimes intuitively think is going to be a good choice for them, and it's not, right? Or some people just sort of like blindly save money. I spoke with I have a friend that came to me. He said he has about $450,000 that he's saved up, and asking me, like, what can he buy with that?
A lot.
I was telling him, like, given this current, where the interest rates are right now, and given like kind of your current income structure, I guess you would say, or situation, because he's an actor, right? And so like the way money comes and goes, very erratic. And, what I told him is that, this is going to be really difficult to make this work. Like, you're going to find that this $450,000 doesn't really go as far as you would have hoped because of the kind of the timing of everything and just like the way that your career works. And I said, how long did it take you to save up $450,000? He said, well, about 15 years. I said, I don't mean to make you feel bad, but I want to help paint a picture. If a couple years in, you had taken your first $25,000 that you had saved up, and if you had bought a $250,000, $300,000 condo in kind of the south part of LA or north part of Orange County or something like that,
be worth a lot of money.
You would have, by today, you would have not only saved up about the same amount of money, even if you lived there, but if you rented it out, you'd be saving up even more. But like, comparatively, let's say you were paying as a mortgage about the same amount as money that you would have, that you've been paying on rent, right? Like, so you would have, theoretically, you could have saved $400,000 either way, right? Except in the latter case, you also would have gained about another $500,000 worth of equity in your real estate.
Wow.
So now you'd be a millionaire instead of, struggling to figure out what you can do with $450K, right? And I wanted to emphasize, like, this is not to make him feel bad. This is not to make anybody feel bad. It is to say, don't make the same mistake again. Okay. It is not too late to get on the boat. Like there's new boats sailing every day. Right. You just got to get on one of them.
And like for someone like yourself, you have properties in different states. So how do you manage that being in Los Angeles, or Orange County? Yeah. Because I know you from Los Angeles. Right. How do you manage that? Do you have property managers? Do you occasionally go out there? How do you make that work?
Sure. Well, okay. My recommendation to everyone in this situation is go with what you know and go with people that you trust. Okay. There's going to be a lot of people like me that show up on your news feed or whatever that are saying, oh my gosh, like Cleveland's unbelievable, or Atlanta's the best place in the country to invest right now, or Portland is, blowing up, or, whatever. And uh, at the end of the day, having close connections that you trust is more valuable than being smart.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of people lose their shirt over, something that was very, very smart, but there was nobody there that they really knew and trusted.
Right.
And there's just too many things that can go wrong. And so for me, I started with, I had my smart list. I had like all my research done of like, oh, these are the top 10 places to invest, right now. This is the best place for rentals, this is the best place for appreciation, this is the best place for, whatever. I had all these lists and I cross-referenced everything, and I figured out, okay, these are the 10 places that I'd be really interested in. And then I just opened up my social media and I was like, all right, who do I know that's living in all these different places? This was in 2020. So a lot of my friends had sort of scattered across the country during the pandemic. And I happened to, one of the places on the list was Cleveland, and I had a few friends that were there, and one of them happened to be actually a sound engineer from out here that I absolutely adored. And he went back during the pandemic to be close to his family, and his brother owns and manages some property. And so, my friend started, helping his brother with that business. And he fell in love with it, got his real estate license, and then he also bought his own property and started investing himself. And anyway, so I happened to call him at exactly the right time, and I invested with him. So he was my agent for my first two purchases out there, and then he also helped. I had a couple friends and family that bought a couple more things out there. Figuring out, who our contractors are going to be and who's going to manage everything. That was like a whole roller coaster as well.
Yeah.
I, even as somebody who's relatively experienced, I still made a ton of mistakes, picked a bunch of the wrong contractors and had to kind of, basically just kind of take these punches and just keep going. If I had to put a number to it, I'd say that on average, a new real estate investor makes about between $20,000 to $50,000 in mistakes in their first year.
Oh my goodness, that sounds very painful.
yeah, it sucks. And but I'll tell you that it's almost like once you kind of quantify it like that, and you say, listen, like I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes on my first project. I'm going to make $50,000 worth of mistakes. Like contractors just running out the door with my money, or this thing happening, or this thing breaking, or this thing I didn't, anticipate. But if you just sort of like, prepare for that, and then you say, but I'm not looking for the results of the first deal. I'm going to, hold myself to do another one and another one and another one. I promise you that by deal 3, 4, 5, 10, you're going to have all the people that you know and trust. You're going to have a system that makes sense. You're going to know the neighborhoods that you like to buy in and the types of stuff that you like to buy. And, like all the pieces will be in place. Like now I have, I have a plumber I like, an electrician I like, a general contractor I like, a property manager that takes care of everything day to day. It was a slow and expensive process to figure all that stuff out, but I have it now.
Right.
And now this year I'm really trying to, more than ever, because like if I have one regret, it's that I didn't go bigger earlier on. Like I was very careful. I didn't want all my friends and family to lose, to come and join me and lose their shirts over.
Right.
Right.
No,
so
that's understandable.
Figure it all out. But then of course the industry and the market has changed so much over the last 4 years that what I was doing 3 years ago doesn't work anymore. And so now I'm like learning something new, but I also don't want to make the same mistake again of not bringing other people along with me. So that's why I've invested the time, energy, and money into drawing up investment documents so that my friends and family can invest with me in this one, and we're going to try to buy 10 houses this year, all together, and all profit off of these things together. With people being able to enter and invest shares for as little as $10,000 a piece.
That's incredible. And that's cool. Like that's one thing about you. I have to say that it's always a community thing.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, I know this isn't necessarily related to music or real estate, but talk about some of the groups that you've even put together. Because he's like you're like, what is that website, Meetup?
Yeah.
He's like
a human
Meetup personified.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I like to throw together groups. We were just kind of talking before the camera started rolling. About how I have like a weekly D&D group, and then a monthly sort of family-friendly mixer for mostly like families with kids, and then also like a monthly gun range group as well. And long story short, I'll just say I've learned like the cheat code to like building up a community is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, listen, on the last Saturday of every month, this is where I'm going to be from this time to this time, right? Every Wednesday night from this time to this time, this is what we're doing. And, and you make it clear. It's like, there's no pressure. There's no commitment from you to do all of those things all the time. Just know that's where I'm going to be. And if you want to come swing by, you're welcome to. And what I found is just like a lot of people, especially adults with busy careers and families and everything, like they really appreciate that somebody took the time to kind of create that space where they can just casually drop in when their time and their schedule and their lives permit. And yeah, like I've got, I don't know, like 60 people over here that I keep in touch with for that sort of thing. I've got 20 or 30 people over here that I keep in touch with for things like that. Like long story short, like you build up pretty good sized networks that way that kind of extend far beyond what you personally would do. I love now opening up my Discord app and seeing that, these 8 middle-aged dads that all just kind of met through this one little event that I started, all discovered that they have a mutual passion for this one thing, and they're having this whole conversation, and they brought their own friends to it that I had no part in. And I love seeing those friendships and those various types of relationships sort of grow and blossom and continue outside of my direct involvement.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's because community is so important. Have you, through all of these different groups, attracted any clients?
Yeah. I'd say that's probably the best way to attract friends and clients and investors. I think starting out in this industry, I tried a little bit of everything, right? Like I tried throwing money at marketing. I tried, like going to certain types of networking events and like, or trying to, go and do like a certain type of video or whatever on social media, trying to kind of expand my presence. And ultimately, I think the most successful thing that I've done is just be a better friend. Basically, just be a good friend, text people, call them, keep in touch with people, and then, create these spaces where you can meet more people and interact with more people and provide your knowledge and your presence to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and you really don't see much of that anymore. I don't know why.
It's because of technology. It's because technology makes it so easy to have sort of a very small surface level kind of social buzz going that it tricks you into thinking that you don't need more, that you don't need to actually see people in person and give hugs and handshakes. It makes you, just so complacent in that, you can, just throw a little comment or shoot a little like or whatever. And then before you know it, you haven't seen any of your friends in person in a few years.
Yeah, well, with us. I mean, there are other circumstances, obviously, marriage and kids, and now you live in the pandemic, you live in the EOC, I live in Los Angeles. So, stuff like that happens. But isn't that a scary thought?
I mean, again, it's something where I think when we were in our 20s, we'd always like hang out at bars, we always go to parties. And it's so, that part of it is so easy that we don't actually internalize good habits that we carry with us into our 30s. Like the work of maintaining friendships.
And it is work.
Yeah. And so I'd say probably the biggest contributing thing to my success now is not technical or business or, any of that stuff. It's just, yeah, just being a good friend.
Yeah, because like we were just talking about it is work, and maybe that's why you're so good at it, because you're a workaholic.
And again, I'd say in my 20s, I probably was,
Yeah.
but like now my priority for sure is spending time with my family, spending time with my kid. Like I grew up with parents that worked super, super hard all the time, and I didn't get to see them very much. And so kind of learning from that, I realized if I had to choose between being very successful or being very present for my family, I'd much rather be very present. And real estate and just investing in general is probably the best way to make sure that you're going to be there for your family or for your art, right? Because like in a way, being there for your art is probably the most critical part of being an artist. If your art is always relegated to just that thing that you do for a few minutes at the end of the day when you're exhausted,
yeah,
right? Or just like on weekends, whenever you have time, right? Like you're automatically putting a ceiling on your ability to do that. And I'll say this, like, don't even think about just yourself in this situation, right? Like you can potentially create a better life for your own kids by investing in such a way where, listen, maybe you might not even ever see the benefits of, your hard work and investments, but maybe you can get, just the right type of investments that provide just enough financial support that your kid isn't going to have to be struggling for, a place to live in their 20s. Right? Like if they're able, if you can provide a situation where your kid doesn't have to be paying off college loans forever and, is able to just know that they're not going to have to ever go without food and shelter. Right? Which is, that's money, but that's not like an insane amount of money. You don't have to be a billionaire to just give your kids an easier time in their 20s, right?
Yeah, because that makes all the difference. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The amount of stress that takes off of them.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, that's where, that's, I think, one of the reasons why, super successful musicians and actors and writers kind of have this reputation of being trust fund babies and sort of like a snide and very bitter way, from everybody else, is because having some of those financial advantages really helps with creativity. If you don't have to spend 40 hours a week being a bartender in order to just live, then yeah, like you probably have the time and capacity to write more music or act more or just be in front of the camera more, whatever. And so I'm here to say that there absolutely are decisions that all of our, like that our peer group can be doing today to make sure that either themselves in the future or their kids, the descendants, will be able to have more creative flexibility, more financial freedom for themselves.
Well, you definitely got my wheels turning. I'm like, I got to start investing like yesterday.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like you got to get, just get started. There's Warren Buffett, the greatest investor in the world, has this piece of advice. He says, you lose more by not being in the game than you do by, I don't know, trying to time the market and getting in at the wrong time.
That makes a lot of sense.
A lot of people are just so scared of getting in at the wrong time or in the wrong place or whatever that they just don't play the game at all. And the truth is that you just got to get into it. Don't risk it all on your very first thing, because that's exactly that. That is how you mess up and can, see a lot of those really negative consequences. But, if you are like smart and careful and you're working again with people that you know and that you trust, and you don't bite off more than you can chew, you're at the very least, you're going to learn a ton. Like even if you lose it all, you're going to learn so much. And then the thing is, you have to commit to keep doing it.
Right.
If you just kind of give up right then and there, then you've lost the education you just spent 50 grand on.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, some of the things that you talked about earlier in the podcast would be a good way to kind of dip your toes into it if you're apprehensive at all, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. I try to give people as many different options as possible. Like I said, like anywhere from whether you have $20 or $2 million, like you should have, like you actually go through very similar thought processes, and you're probably going to go through a very similar learning curve. I think, some people are going to kind of like sort of, hand wave at me, even mentioning like, oh, well, once you have millions of dollars, then it's easy, right? It is absolutely not easy. Like I know people who, let's say they're house shopping in the $4 or $5 million price range, and they still didn't get half the things they thought they wanted in a house. You know what I mean? Like there are people, like my friend who saved up hundreds of thousands of dollars, or another friend who saved up millions of dollars, and they can still just lose it all, or at least lose enough to really feel it.
Right.
Like that, just lose it like that.
Scary.
And so,
that's terrifying.
So yeah, so it's like, it doesn't matter where you are on that journey. It doesn't matter where you are in life. You still got to be careful. You got to be smart. You got to work with the right people. And, but just don't hold off on the sidelines and wait. That's it. That the only wrong answer is to do nothing.
Are there any like helpful tips or some advice that you could give to people who wanted to start off investing in real estate, I suppose? I mean, I guess it could be in anything, but since you're here, I think real estate would be a good area of focus.
Let me actually turn that around for a second, because, I think I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that feel sort of a disconnect with me sitting here saying like, oh yeah, like open up a stock portfolio right now and invest in these 3 things, or, whatever. Because that still just kind of feels out of reach for a lot of people, So let me say, like, kind of take a step back and kind of ask yourself one of those questions that we were kind of talking about earlier, which is like, is there an aspect of your professional life, an aspect of your career that maybe you're not giving enough attention to, Like maybe you have thought, oh, you know what, like a fancy camera and some lights and microphones and all that, like maybe that's just way too out of reach, when really, like, I mean, like, chances are if you buy just the cheapest version of everything on Amazon, I'd say that the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of anybody living in a first world country, you can spare the money to be able to start. Just get started. Put your phone on a tripod,
right?
Grab a couple lights and just start, right? And so my advice is invest in yourself first. Invest in yourself. Invest in your education. Invest in new gadgets, new skills. Invest in yourself. Once you have some money to spare from that, then open up your first little pocket trading, stock brokerage account. And it's not really for the money you might earn from that. It's the people that you're going to meet and the conversations you're going to have around that, right? Like all of a sudden you're going to be able to sit down in a room with somebody who's even like 10 years, 20 years, more advanced than you in that, and actually have a real conversation about dividends and, price over earnings, and, like just really understand all the different ways of looking at ROI and how to diversify your portfolio and just all this other stuff. Like there's so many concepts and terms and things like that that you just need to learn. You just need to kind of like start somewhere. And for the vast majority of people, they start with like an easy stock trading app or, something like that to just sort of dip their toe in the water. And I guarantee you, like the conversations you have from that, because there's going to be other people in your life. They're like, oh yeah, I was on Robinhood. I've been there for years. I like tech stocks and I like, these sorts of things. And I got, all that. And those are all really good conversations to have. Like you should be more aware of what's going on Wall Street and what's going on in the economy overall and what's going on with interest rates. Like when you get really into that stuff and you start to consume those podcasts and watch those YouTube videos and have those conversations with your friends at bars and restaurants and stuff like that, at your kid's birthday party, you kind of stand around and just chat with your friends about, I know, I'm sorry, I keep touching that.
I'm going to tie you
down. You're going to have these conversations that before you know it, you're actually going to sound pretty smart.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you're going to be like, oh, well, actually, like I know the difference between, because like if you know nothing about investing, and then I sit here and I start talking to you about the difference between a 5% cap rate or a 7% cap rate, or, this is what the ROI is going to be on this, but, ROI is not really like a good measure. You need to actually look at it like this. I mean, like for a lot of people with the level of sort of like financial literacy that is generally taught in most places for most majors,
A
it's
lot of people
terrible.
don't, yeah, they don't know about that stuff.
Yeah. So you got to start somewhere. You got to learn the basic concepts first, and then I'd say a couple years down the line, then you can actually sit down and talk to someone like me, and I can actually give you advice that you'll actually be able to understand,
Hmm.
and then guide you in the right direction where you can make real money.
What are some digestible resources for people? Just pretend now I'm doing it. Oh my gosh. Pretend I'm an idiot.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Which places can I look to, or that you found to be helpful,
Yeah.
where they lay everything out for you in simple terms and
Right.
simplistic
Yeah.
terms so you can start learning? Are there any influencers you can
Sure.
think of? Any
Yeah.
YouTube channels you can point us to?
Well, I mean, I love podcasts.
Mhm.
And, the Bigger Pockets podcast is a really, really great one. I mean, that's like the one, anybody that works in real estate listens to Bigger Pockets. They are the sort of definitive podcast on the real estate industry. And, they have a lot of great stuff that isn't really even just like very technical and specific to real estate. They have they'll talk a lot about just sort of like investment mindset, and kind of sort of like basic concepts, and talk about major industry trends or like major economic trends, or stuff like that, that is something that is generally pretty digestible, like it's designed to be entertaining and educational for a mainstream market. There's another podcast that people don't really talk about as much. It's not as famous, but I love it. It's called The Real Wealth Show.
Hmm.
And that one's great because it's this woman who started it. I think it's like 15 or plus years ago at this point, and she was like just like a stay at home mom, or like a regular suburban mom. And she starts this podcast just to teach herself more about real estate, and just started inviting any smart realtors around her to come and talk to her. And now it's this absolute juggernaut. She's written books. She's one of the best
Wow.
real estate investors in the country right now. She provides a platform that allows total newbies to kind of get into the game and make their first investment. So actually, I've been very inspired by her. I can't say that my model is similar to hers really in any way, but just that she was there as like an early influence as I was kind of embarking on my own investment journey. And I've always aspired to create a platform that is able to, that's so easy, and holds people's hands in such a intelligent and sensitive way to help them get in investing. And her target market, I love this, is by and large like suburban moms.
Hmm.
Like they're like, and she has a lot of people on the podcast who they feel more like real relatable people, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like, Bigger Pockets has a tendency to bring in like people who are, already billionaires, or like, just someone who's already experienced a ton of success. Whereas Real Wealth Show, has more like, oh, here's this woman who just bought her first 3 investment properties, or like here's this very kind of specific situation about, oh, you've got this. I remember this one episode that really struck me, and this is also very relevant to musicians and self-employed people and stuff like that. Is so her husband played baseball professionally, and he had to travel all the time for work. And so what they ended up doing is she just kind of moved with him everywhere that he went, and somehow she got this idea, like everywhere they went, they would buy a house, like especially like kind of the less expensive
Yeah,
areas,
yeah,
right? Where you
yeah.
can buy a house for $50,000, $100,000, right? So they just buy the house and they'd rent out all the rooms to other baseball players,
Brilliant.
right?
That's absolutely brilliant.
By the end of his professional baseball career, they owned 10 houses, and they were making consistent money on all of them. And now that he's sort of, retired at the age of like 28, right? Like she now is the big breadwinner for the family because she manages their real estate portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, brilliant.
brilliant and also very broadly applicable. There's a lot of people who just by nature of their work, they just have to travel a lot. Their money comes to them in big spurts, here and there. So you and I know people like that, right?
I
Like you
was
and I
going to
know
say
all
like a
sorts of people.
production company should do something like that.
Exactly. If you're a producer, you're an on-site producer, you have to travel a lot for work. You have to go to usually like people like when you go to film, you're not filming in like expensive areas, right? Like
Hmm.
you're going to more affordable parts of the country to film. That's the whole reason why you're going there to film, right?
Right.
Buy a house while you're there. Like like just imagine if somebody had, like especially some of these kind of up and coming filming cities, if someone had just gone and just, I don't know, just buy a suburban house in Atlanta every time you go and film
Yeah.
something in Atlanta. Like it was dirt cheap, 10 years ago, 20
Hmm.
years ago. And now Atlanta is just blowing up, and it's probably one of the best places in the country to invest right now. Someone could have been a multi-millionaire off of a, you know, like a low level line producer salary.
Yeah. And you just don't know.
Yeah.
And, it's all about taking chances. I mean, I do that regularly with my career,
Hmm.
and I don't have any fear. And that's not to say that because I don't have much fear, invest absolutely everything and then potentially lose my shirt. But,
Yeah.
you have to have a little bit of fearlessness to be in the real estate world, I
Oh, yeah.
think. And for yourself, I mean, you're fearless too.
Well, I promise you, real estate is less scary than the music business. Right?
Most things are.
Yeah, right. Like you can spend a lot of money on an album, spend a lot of money
And there's no return
on
anymore.
yeah, on a music video or whatever, spend a ton of money on a music tour and not turn a profit,
Hmm.
right? It is very difficult to lose a lot of money in real estate. I know, like, I don't know, a bunch of people are gonna roll their eyes on that because like it, like I said, like earlier I was like, oh well, you're just gonna lose $50,000, right? But the missing part of the equation there is obviously like, well, I can always just sell the house,
Hmm.
right? Like I can just sell the house and make at least most of my money back, you
Right.
know? Like worst case scenario, if I am destitute, I can go and live in one of these houses,
Hmm.
like there's just so many things, but then so those are all the worst case scenarios, but the best case scenarios are also very interesting because the versatility it gives you,
Hmm.
right? Like there's no other type of investment that allows you to be able to, oh, you know what? A few years down the line, I'm going to cash out refinance. I'm going to take out a few $100,000 out of these properties that are, making rent. And basically the rental income is paying for the loans. So these is a couple $100,000 like free money for me to go and do something else with, you know?
Right. And just think about it too. I mean, some of the best lessons that I've ever learned have been because of poor investments,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part about it. It hurt at the time. It
Yeah.
hurt my pocketbook, but I learned a lot.
And I'll tell you how not to do it. I've got one friend who invested in Vegas and just lost his shirt. It
Mm.
was just terrible. There's this like vacation property there. Instead of taking the lessons that he learned and buying something else in Vegas, but this time with like now he knows he's got a good property management company, and now he's met an agent that he likes better, right? Instead of going and buying another Vegas house, he thought, you know what, Vegas just isn't for me, and he went and bought a house in another state,
Mm.
and then another house in another state. And what I've learned is that $20,000 to $50,000 of mistakes, you're going to need to make that in every new place that you invest, every new category of investment, you're going to make those mistakes. And so you're really just sort of multiplying your mistakes and multiplying your, I guess, your cost of entry, rather than just taking the knowledge that you've learned so far and really kind of honing it and focusing it in one area.
Right. Well, Richard, oh my gosh, this has been incredible. This has been such a great interview.
Oh, thank you.
It's so great to see you, man. I mean, even if it takes us, filming a podcast, we gotta do more of this. But
Yeah.
I really want you to pimp your services. So please tell everybody where they can follow you personally, and also, if you want to tell everybody the website address
Sure.
for your
Yeah, of course.
business. And also, I have to say that
Yeah.
I so look forward to all of your Facebook posts all the time because
you.
you always, what's the stuff that you always post? It's Is it Zillow gone wild?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them now.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, because of the success of Zillow Gone Wild, which, by the way, is now going to be its own HGTV television
Oh,
show.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, there's like a lot of different stuff that I find and I post that are just, either things that are extraordinarily beautiful and grand and unbelievable, or just the worst
I love
horrible
those. Those are my
mistakes.
favorite
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Like the things where you're just like, oh my God, like just everything about the concept and development of this was just an absolute nightmare. Or just things that people just did really badly,
Right.
they're just bad at this. They should not have done this.
It's fun, but like when they have like carpet all over the bathroom and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in general, and imagine we'll kind of post a bunch of little links or whatever on the, all the places this is posted, but imaginationbroker.com. I think it's the Instagram is something like, instagram.com/imaginationbroker. Same for Facebook, like facebook.com/ Imagination Brokerage, and also RJ Wayland, myself. So Richard J. Wayland, you can find me on Facebook. Yeah, right now I'd say I kind of post, so because like I already feel like such an old man that like Facebook is like my preferred platform.
No, I love Facebook.
Yeah.
We're both old. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I got to be honest with you. I actually am not 100% sure what my Instagram handle is or like what my Threads handle is. It's something like, Imagination Broker or the Imagination Brokerage, like, one or the other.
Do you do TikTok at all? Or you're like, no, that's too much.
Like, cause my wife loves TikTok, and I think she did start a TikTok first, but I don't post anything on there. And then I've been meaning to do more stuff on YouTube as well, but like, I don't know, I never get around to doing it. Yeah. But right now, where I've kind of found a lot of interest that sort of surprised me, because so let me take a step back. What I found over the last couple of years is that being famous on Facebook or elsewhere or whatever does not immediately translate into sales, right? Like for some industries it can be, and in some ways you can, if you continually get famous enough, it can turn into business for you, or obviously you can become an influencer, and then that's its own sort of source of revenue.
Right.
But at least for me, I wasn't really seeing like a lot of the tangible results of being a social media influencer, even though like, I don't know, I mean, it's like I can get a few thousand views on stuff pretty easily. I think my highest viewed video is like 200,000 views or something like that, which is really good,
respectable.
right? Like that's really good.
good.
And, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't really translate into dollars for me. But what does work is actually going on friends' podcasts and
stealing their fans.
No, there's a certain type of kind of more longer form media that like, maybe only 150 people and your mom and my mom are going to see this, but like that 150 people are going to feel a much greater sense of connection to me. And so anyway, so I've been doing a lot more like live webinars, offering more live events and things like that, as a way to kind of build more meaningful connections and more long lasting relationships. And I've been finding that's been working generally a lot better for me.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, everybody, please follow Richard. He's one of my favorite people on earth. We've known each other forever. You're going to love him as much as I love him. He's fantastic.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming all the way from the OC to LA to come see me today.
Gosh, it is such a pleasure. I mean, like, this thing, sorry, I keep touching this thing. It's so like only you would have a conversation with me in 1 month being like, I'm thinking about having a podcast. And then like within 6 weeks, you've got a sponsor, you've got like, half a dozen of these things already recorded on, under your belt. You've got just all this stuff just looks and sounds so great.
Thank you.
Man, you always blow me away. Just every single time, every little thing you put your mind to.
Well, likewise. And oh my God, I love you, Richard Wayland. But thank you so much. And everybody, please. Now you got me doing it again. Oh my God, I'm like, hey, I'm the Italian hands. But everybody, please follow Richard. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.